Hey, Mel? Oh yeah, what's up? Where's your mom? Thank you to our fellow patrons, Strawbones, Red4765, Midnight Gemlord, Argoon, and Sean. Now, before I'm this breakdown slash discussion on the origins, I suppose, of Meliodas, Elizabeth, and Zeldris, please unfairly your own thoughts on their origins in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to hit that little notification so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You can support for as low as $1 a month. You can like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and here we are to talk about the parentage, or realistically lack thereof, of the royals in Seven Deadly Sins. And specifically, when I say the royals, I don't mean like Droll, Gloxinia, King Ali. I mean like the demon and goddess royals, like all three of them. Like, do they have other parentage or not? Because the answers seem to be either non-existent or a bit mixed. So let's hop into it. So the thing is, right? The supreme deity in the Demon King made the Demon Clan and Goddess Clan. That is just established. They created them. How? I don't know. They did. But the thing is, they aren't portrayed as like origins. They aren't portrayed as like mothers or a mother and a father to all of their respective clan members. No, they very specifically have children, which implies that there is like a separate distinction. Like, a red demon and Meliodas do not share the same bloodline. They're the same species by pure technicality, but they aren't actually the same individual. Same thing with like Elizabeth and Divine Lance Corporal. They are both goddesses in the conventional sense, but Elizabeth is directly produced from the supreme deity, presumably naturally. Same thing with Meliodas and Zeldris. They're presumably naturally born from the Demon King, while every other creature was created, like made in a lab, or however they make them. I don't know, probably the same place they make stars. But regardless of that, the question I ask is, does Tristan have like a grandpappy? Or I guess technically, like Elizabeth, he doesn't technically have one, because Elizabeth incarnated into Bartra's family, so Bartra's technically his grandpappy. But like, for Meliodas, on his side of the family, does he have a grandma? Like, does he? And will that ever factor in? Mainly, the whole reason I even thought about this is because I was going through Q&A questions, and I saw the whole thing where someone asked if Meliodas has a mom, and Nakaba says, I would assume he does. So she does exist. Yeah, I think. But she just has no relevance or impact on Meliodas, Zeldris, any of their ideologies and morals, and she just never goes mentioned in the actual canon series. Like, I did a quick skim. I didn't like comb every bit of text or dialogue or anything, but I did a quick skim, and Elizabeth's father never mentioned, not once, like at all, like nowhere in the manga. If someone can find a mention of her father somewhere in the manga, please let me know. They just don't exist, at least from my reading quick skim of it. Same thing with Meliodas. There's no actual canonical mention of Meliodas having a mother, despite Nakaba alluding to the fact that he should have a mother, because, you know, like, people do that. But I don't know, like, did they like, this is gonna sound so weird, did they like get down and dirty with their own creations? Like, I'm talking about the supreme deity and the Demon King here. Like, did they really be like, for the Demon King, I put just the right kind of curves on that red demon. Vermilion looking kind of thick. And then proceed, but he can't be Vermilion, right? Because, I don't know, I feel like the red demon traits would, like, carry over more. So it had to be a humanoid demon. But if that's the case, where are they? Like, I think Meliodas should at least have mentioned her. And if not Meliodas, Zeldris. Zeldris definitely seems like a mama's boy. At least if you ask me. Especially after how he was treated by his dad. Like, you would think he would go to his mom. But they never mention her. Though, according to Nakaba, she supposedly exists, and that could be an interesting route to take Tristan. Like, hypothetically, we've all been wondering how Tristan's going to get a handle on his demon powers. Because obviously, he's too, like, scared / frustrated with his dad to learn from him. And, you know, Meliodas is either going to get put in a pack or sealed away anytime soon, so he's not going to learn from them. We've been thinking Zeldris, and that's entirely possible still, and I think it's actually pretty likely. But Also, we do have the option of their mom, because we know demons, if they are made the right way, which is weird to talk about, but if they're made the right way, they can exceed the 1,000-year lifespan. Look at Chandler and Cusack. They are 6,000 years old. They should be perfectly fine. So, hypothetically, a mom that could survive the plumber known as the Demon King, I think she should be able to at least be around a little bit longer. Like, hypothetically, you could just say she died in childbirth. Like, she gave birth to Zeldris and then clap. But I don't know. That seems unsatisfying. And I feel like Meliodas would at least mention her. Unless you want to believe that Meliodas and Zeldris have different moms, which is entirely possible. But they have the exact same eye color, which ironically enough makes me believe that the Demon King, not in Demon Mark, has green eyes too. But regardless of that, the weird thing is like, even with that, we should still have some sort of traits. And considering the prime Demon King, his prime flesh does have black hair, I'm actually thinking Meliodas' mom was blonde, which is interesting, but also confusing. Because, like, do we ever see a blonde demon? Like, Darieri isn't even blonde. She's, like, off-brand blonde. Has orange hair. So, and I highly doubt Darieri would be Meliodas' mom, by the way. I'm just trying to think of, like, general blonde demon. Maybe Darieri's sister was blonde, but I don't know. Somehow, the Demon King made a living, breathing, you-know-what, and then put 2 babies in it, and bada bing, bada boom, we have Meliodas and Zeldris. The only reason I think this is interesting is because we could hypothetically have Tristan confronting his past through his grandma. And I think, considering the Demon King and the Supreme Deity, for all intents and purposes, maybe you could argue the Supreme Deity, maybe not, because she wasn't, like, dealt with in such a finite way like the Demon King was, but at least, and I mean at least for the Demon King, bro's gone. Like, every level of existence, that bro's, like, not here anymore. So he really would have no, like, great elder to teach his heritage unless he had a grandma, you know. You could just, in fact, have a great grandma. Well, not a great grandma, but he could have a grandma who just doesn't go mentioned. And, like, admittedly, there's a whole ton of other things in Seven Deadly Sins that require focus and attention, so I can definitely understand why Nakaba just wouldn't introduce it. Heck, when you think about it, most shonen main characters don't necessarily get parents. Like, one of my favorite series ever, Kingdom Hearts, has one mention of Sora's mother. And it's one line. She's not mentioned anywhere else, not in any extra material, not in anything else, just one line in KH1, and that's it. So it's entirely possible that Nakaba, like, just off-screened her because he didn't have any use for her. And, you know, you do that sometimes. Like, technically, you don't have to go out and write your entire character's backstory, but I think it's just important because, like, the Demon King and the Supreme Deity are not conventional demons and goddesses. They just aren't. So they had to have something impure in their biology to produce legitimate demons and goddesses in Elizabeth, Zeldris, and Meliodas. At least, presumably. But if so, where are they? Did their mom just, like, pass away? And this time from old age and not from childbirth? And if so, that's fine. But then that doesn't explain the man who got to somehow lay it down with the Supreme Deity. Like, notably, she never ended up in purgatory. She was just always that big, apparently. Like, legitimately, she was just always a Titan. So, did she make another Titan and they got to Titan tussling and bada bing, bada boom, we had Elizabeth? And if so, where'd he go? Like, unlike the Demon Clan, where I could give an excuse where hypothetically the Demon King made a woman and then woman made kids and then bada bing, bada boom, she just passed away from old age. I'm not sure about, like, the father of Elizabeth, because reasonably he should still be alive. Like, unless he was created, like, way long ago, we've never actually seen a goddess die of old age. Ludashell is 6,000 for perspective, and he seems no worse for the wear. So, I don't know. I feel like Elizabeth's dad could be an interesting route to go down too. Once again, I also believe that Elizabeth, one way or another, is going to either A, get packed, or B, something's going to happen to her where she can no longer be an asset. And we've already set up the fact that while Tristan has some level of mastery over his goddess powers, he doesn't have that, like, high level, next level, insane in the membrane level mastery. So we could have a whole side plot where we visit the Celestial Realm and his grandpappy ends up training him. I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's a possibility, which is what kind of makes me interested. But once again, for someone like Elizabeth, someone who's much more, like, emotionally driven and focused on other people, I'm shocked she never mentioned her dad. And of course, there's the secret third option where Nakaba just lied. Like, he straight up said, "Oh yeah, he should have a mom." Maybe. Possibly. In some way, shape, or form. But then, in reality, they just were popped into existence. Like, it's not implausible. They are demons and goddesses, and we know that the Supreme Deity and the Demon King can make demons and goddesses. But the thing is, the reason I still think they do have, like, direct biological lineage to their respective parents is because they're specifically noted as the heirs, the next Demon King and Supreme Deity. Like, that's their whole shtick. They aren't, like, created. Like, I'm trying to think of a comparable example where it's like the equivalency is just not there. Like, you would think if they were just created, like, poofed out of existence or poofed into existence, then one, Nakaba would have made that Q&A statement, and two, they would be, like, much weaker than they really should be. But it seems they have the biological ties to the point where Meliodas and Zeldris have Demon King level magics, because that's just what they inherited from their pops. So they should have Mother, but where Mother be? Why Mother not spoken about? Why Mother not here? And will Mother do anything? I highly, like, this is just an idea I came up with just thinking about it randomly, but I don't, worst comes to worst, I really don't think we're going to actually get anything out of something like this. Mainly because I don't see the series going that way. Like, if we were ever going to learn about it, I think Nakaba would have poked at it a bit more canonically within the narrative. Like, the most buildup we have to Supreme Deity having a husband and the Demon King having a wife is the fact that the kids exist. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the wife and or husband ever have to be relevant or necessary to the narrative. I think it'd be interesting, like, hypothetically, if I were to, if you were to put me in charge of writing Seven Deadly Sins, I would include them. I would make them, like, ironically enough, I'd probably make them unfortunately, the original demon kind of stole that. But, like, for the Supreme Deity, if you want to give her an original demon equivalent, have it be her husband. A person who she gave a whole ton of power to make him an equal. You know, they got down and dirty, made Elizabeth, and then he betrayed her, and bada bing, bada boom, we have the Four Graces. Sure, it would be a rehash of the Demon King story and the original demon stuff, and that doesn't give any place in the original demon. Well, no, it doesn't give the Demon King any story with his wife, but still, I think it could be interesting. Especially considering a big theme about Seven Deadly Sins is love and connections and bonds and all that. Like, for all intents and purposes, Seven Deadly Sins is a love story. A tragic one and a very, very long one, but a love story. So the fact that the progenitors of two of our biggest lovebirds, if not the lovebirds of the entire series, kind of just go unmentioned is a little bit weird. You would think Nakaba would at least give them an offhand comment. And, like, literally all he has to say is that they passed away, or they were slain in battle, or something like that. Like, something to substantiate it. But no, Meliodas, Zeldris, and Elizabeth never, ever mention any parent outside their godly ones. And I get it, you know, those are the most important ones. I highly doubt that the Demon Queen that the Demon King made would have been, like, rebellious or not liked her kid or anything like that. Like, I don't think that's the case. I think we have enough of that with the Demon King. But still, the idea that Meliodas and Zeldris just completely just ignore seems a little bit off. Same with Elizabeth, especially Elizabeth. I can kind of get Prime Elizabeth. I can kind of get Prime Meliodas. Like, he just doesn't seem like a dude to care, like, legitimately about any sort of familial bonds and stuff like that. Whether it be pre or post humbling, or pre or post, like, happiness, I guess you would say. He doesn't seem like he would care. Zeldris seems like a guy who would follow in Meliodas' lead, so it makes sense why he wouldn't care. But it's Elizabeth. It's Elizabeth that throws me off. Like, you're telling me she doesn't exist. Or no, he doesn't exist somewhere? Really? You're really trying to tell me that? I don't know if I can buy that. I think there's a little bit of a steamy situation going on. And I'm not just talking about that. No, let me talk. Let me stop. But overall, those are just some, like, random thoughts about what they would have. I do think they could serve a really interesting narrative purpose. If I were to, like, sit down and write it, I would probably have, like, everyone failed to try and teach Tristan how to master his powers. Like, literally everyone. We're already seeing Meliodas and Elizabeth. They do their best, and they got Tristan some good fundamentals. Like, Tristan can activate Demon Mark on command, and he can use Goddess abilities on command. But then he goes to Zeldris, and then he gets a little bit more mastery. Then he goes to Mael, and gets a little bit more mastery. And then finally, he goes to his grandparents. And they end up empathizing with Tristan in ways that no one ever could, because they're the biological producers of him, for one. Like, they're his biological ancestors. And two, they've been around for a long time. Longer than well, I guess in the case of the Demi, longer than Meliodas, longer than Zeldris, longer than Mael. So of course they'd be able to tell him things that the others couldn't. They'd be able to empathize with him in ways that they couldn't, through their experiences in either co-ruling the realms or just being a subordinate to their respective deity, their respective creator. And we could have a really interesting arc where we see the two sides come together to try and train Tristan together, one way or another, having the former queen of the demon realm and the former king of the celestial realm come together and codependently assist their grandchild, especially after their children either end up sealed or passing away. I think it would be a great narrative choice to sort of give Tristan mentors that aren't already existing Nephilims, and kind of give him that full experience of a mentor-student relationship with people that are new. Because hypothetically, I could definitely see, once again, I see Zeldris and Mael sort of teaching Tristan how to do everything, especially Mael, considering he literally had like a whole dark light fiasco and was going crazy and transforming and all stuff like that. Like, it is definitely possible for Mael to just be the solo teacher. I think that would be a good role for him, but that's another video for another time. I think it would be interesting if we have piecemeal progression, especially with things like Demon Mark, especially with things like the level of goddess powers he has, all that. It would be a great way to organically work the parents in, especially considering you could just say they come out of hiding. Now that their respective overlords are gone and they have no longer any reason to fear of them, consider it like Zeus in the original Kronos story. Kronos kept eating the kids, the deities kept fighting off and doing things that the spouses didn't like, so they went into hiding. And then finally, the news finally reached them that, hey, by the way, the two gods, they're not gods anymore. They're soil. And then bada bing, bada boom, they pop out and they join their kids. Like, hypothetically, I don't see the father of Elizabeth ever coming to the Kingdom of Leonis. I don't see that happening, but I could definitely see Tristan and the gang showing up in the demon realm, and Zeldris is stood by, or like he's seated up there with his wife, but his royal advisor is his mom. Once again, I don't know why I've such a strong headcanon. Like, it's in my bones that I believe Zeldris is a mama's boy. So I could definitely see him sitting back and taking advice from his mom on how to run the demon realm, considering she would know best. She's been around the longest, much longer than Zeldris. Remember, Zeldris is only, 252 plus 16? Bro is like, mathematics, 268. He's not even 30 yet in terms of human years. Sure, his brain is fully developed by this point, but still, he needs a little bit of extra guidance. And I think a hypothetical mom figure would do that very well. The harder one to organically work in, don't get me wrong, would be Elizabeth's father. I think you could do an interesting thing where he kind of ends up becoming the leader of the demon realm, the leader of the celestial realm, where it's kind of like he's the one who's running everything now alongside Mael, once again, sort of acting as an advisor, one to lead things along, and then Tristan could meet his grandpa and meet his grandma in these positions of power, and he could realize and learn more and more and more about his heritage and seeing where he comes from. I think a big thing that's sort of lacking now that all the archangels are in the midst of recovery and pretty much all the major demons are dead or gone or sealed away or something like that, Tristan sort of has no real ties to the past. Like, he has no real links to the past. He has ties. Obviously, he's a demon goddess human hybrid. But he doesn't have any, like, direct, proper links that would allow him to go back and really understand his history, understand the culture, get a better experience. Because Zeldris is too young. Elizabeth has her memories of that time, but obviously she didn't seem to explain that to him. And even characters like Mael are relatively young in comparison to a lot of their contemporaries. Mael is the youngest archangel, I believe. So he's also kind of out of the loop. So you could have these grandparent figures come in and sort of introduce Tristan into both halves of his culture, both halves of his biology, giving him the experience that he could never have from his parents, because his parents have essentially entirely divorced themselves. Well, not entirely, but majorly divorced themselves from their respective clans. Like, when was the last time? Well, Meliodas visits the demon world occasionally, and he brings back the demon snakes. But in terms of, like, teaching Tristan anything about his history, He just doesn't. Tristan doesn't know anything. Same thing with Elizabeth. She refuses to recount any of the tales of when she was the Bloody Ellie, but I think that's a pretty important time in her life and could teach Tristan all a ton of lessons. So if the kids don't want to tell it, I bet their parents would love to tell it. Having sat by and watched for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years and finally having the chance to give an input, finally having the chance to speak up, finally having the chance to be relevant and be interesting. And that's the thing. I think these characters could be interesting on their own. They could give us different sides and different reflections to the Supreme Deity and the Demon King. One of the biggest weaknesses of both of those characters is the fact that they're kind of, boring and one note. They both want to rule creation and have a holy war. Like, that's about it. But if we could get their spouses and have them explain to Tristan, yes, your grandfather, well, in the case of the Demon King, or the Demon Queen in this case, feel like, yes, your grandfather was a tyrant. He was a beast, he was a monster, but he took care of us. He made sure that we were all fed, he made sure that we stayed safe, and he made sure that no demonic blood would be spilled without consequence and retribution. And then you could have the Supreme Deity have her husband do the exact same thing. Your mother was a protector of all goddesses. They worshipped her as a deity, but I worshipped her as a wife. And honestly, she made sure that there was no infringement ever on the demon clan, or ever done by the demon clan to the goddess clan. And thusly, she was realistically our hero. And we have these two combating sides. And we have Tristan having these two combating sides, fitting into his whole narrative about being conflicted. Like, Tristan is literally the purest example of conflict and malice and a whole bunch of other things within the verse. He's the perfect example of that because he's literally a demon goddess hybrid. This is his whole shtick. So him having conflicting views, having both sides, having his grandparents telling him opposite things while he learns more and more about his culture, it'd be interesting, it'd be cool, it'd be great to see how they would deal with a baby. Because once again, I'm not sure how fast demons regularly grow, but I think they'd be like, oh, you're 6, like, the demon mom, or the demon queen, I suppose, would probably look at Tristan and be like, oh, you're growing so fast, because 16-year-old to 1,000-year-old lifespan, that's about, like, what, 1.6 years old, if that? Probably not, probably a little bit less, or maybe a little bit more, but you're not 2 yet in demon lifespan, and in goddess lifespan, jeez, you may not even be at your mama yet. So realistically, you could have adorable interactions. You could have these moments where they're like, oh, your father never told me about you. Your mother never told me about you. I'm going to go beat them. And then we could have beautiful moments like that. We could have more and more awkward moments with Tristan. Like, one of the biggest things that's a running gag is how Tristan calls his mom and dad mommy and daddy. Like, legitimately, those are his mom and pops, and he treats them as such. So imagine if he had grandma and grandpa. I think that would be so cool. And we already see a little bit of how he treats the former king, Bartra. So imagine how he would treat a demon elder or a goddess elder. I think it would be nice. I think it would be a good switch up. And I think if we ever do have something akin to like a Tristan alone arc, which is something I do think we may have, like one way or another, we're going to have Tristan being alone. I think it would be a great place to take him. Have him discover his roots, have him grow in his understanding of his own heritage, have him meet these characters who are so deeply intertwined to the previous series, yet go completely unmentioned, have them have a role, have them be interesting, have them do all that. And it doesn't take much. You could literally just run this idea as flat as possible. He's just a powerful demon and a powerful goddess that got to lay the pipe into the powerful demon king and the powerful supreme deity, and then bada bing bada boom, they had kids and life was kind of set. I think that story could be really interesting, and what it does with Tristan and all the characters connected to him could be fun too. Even his own swords and stuff like that could be used in interesting and unique ways. So overall, I definitely think the idea of Meliodas, Zeldris, and Elizabeth having parents outside of their respective godly ones would be super duper interesting, and I really want to see it. I want to see something like that because it would be so interesting and amazing to watch, break down, and analyze. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that little notification bell to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below in support for Rizzo as count them $1 a month. You know, exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, I'll become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.